financial inclusion for Black British exists at every level of the financial system. And understanding the sources of exclusion is the very first step to fixing the problem and also fixing the system. On today's episode, where we get to discuss the diary of a Black woman's career, I am joined by Samantha Owa, who's an HR manager at one of the financial services here in the UK, as well as Hannah Wonoga, who is a VP of Inclusion and Diversity, also at one of the financial services here in the UK. Hannah is also the founder of Rarity London Career Services. Thank you, ladies, for joining me today. The first question for you guys, how did you get to where you are in your career? And I guess it's pretty much looking at what your journey has been since the start. I'll start with you, Sam.
Well, I'll probably say my journey to work in a financial organisation is probably unusual because I did not necessarily choose this path straight away. So I originally had a role in hospitality management. So it was just, I suppose, a realization that hospitality, which unfortunately COVID has really highlighted, is one of those industries that can be quite up and down at times. And I remember having a really clear conversation with myself about where do I feel my career would be best served, that would give a sense of, I suppose, stability. And I made the decision that I will try and work for a financial organization. So I left hospitality management and went into working in one of the financial services retail branches.
Okay.
And that is where I commenced my career here.
Hannah, how about you? Thanks for sharing that, Sam.
So for me, I have been with my organisation for 14 years and I started when I was 17. So they stole me in my teens. And similar to Sam, I started in the branch network. I didn't go to uni I didn't go to college or uni. I went straight from school leaver into banking. And so after a period of time, I realized that actually I probably would need to go to university if I wanted to progress. And at the time, the organization I worked for was doing a degree program. So I was accepted onto that program via merit based on my experience with the company. And so when I graduated from uni, I was offered a branch manager's position. And so I moved into an area manager role, which I was looking after 16 business managers across East London. And then again, just continuing on that career pathway, I realized that actually I wanted to do something a bit more specialized around colleague. So moved into another colleague role. And then I went on maternity leave in 2019. And then on maternity leave, I then applied for my current position, which was a promotion, and was promoted on maternity leave into the diversity and inclusion VP role that I am in today. And in terms of Rarity London, 3 years ago, I just decided that actually people were coming to me, asking me for career advice, asking me for interview support, asking me to support them with some challenges that they're facing as work, especially within our Black professionals. And so I started Rarity London, which is a career development service that I offer that offers coaching and support to young professionals, female professionals.
Quite an interesting journey, just listening to both of you. And I think for you, Hannah, it's quite peculiar to actually hear that a woman has been promoted whilst on maternity leave. And I think that's really, really good to hear. And I think that's a brownie point for your organisation. So just moving on quickly, considering the number of years you both have worked, would you consider, or would you agree or disagree that your experience and achievement matches when compared to your non-Black counterparts, or perhaps, I guess, male counterparts as well?
Well, if I take that question first, I would say the journey for me as a Black woman in a financial organisation, making the necessary steps to climb the career ladder is fraught with lots of challenges. The challenges vary depending on where you are, because I would say initially in the retail sector, I found the challenges less obvious. And I think that's an acknowledgement that actually in retail, we have a more diverse group of colleagues. which is probably representative of the community we serve in the retail space. And therefore, seeing a Black woman in management in that role was not necessarily unusual. And therefore, the path to that was a lot more straightforward and easy. When you get into the corporate space, the challenge moves into another new gear.
Right.
And the reality is that, for me anyway, there is a need for senior leaders who hire into the senior roles at that level in that corporate space, need the safety of that the people they put into that space is people that are like them, in essence. So they feel they're taking a bigger risk if you're a Black woman. So that means actually not so many opportunities are directed in your way, because the risk to them they perceive is higher. So actually, as a Black woman, you have to work really hard at engaging, networking, almost showing people you could already do the role rather than rely on your potential to do the role.
And that's never an easy place for us. It's never a comfortable place. It's never something, it has never been something that we've been taught to do.
No, definitely not.
It'd be good to hear from you, Hannah. What's been your experience based on, I guess, the same question? Would you say that where you are currently in your career versus your years of experience sort of marry?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. And actually, if I think about some of the peers that I have who have maybe been VPs longer than me, but started in the same place as me, they are white. And I think one of the things that I would also like to say is that as I was climbing the ladder, there were no people that looked like me. So therefore, when I was trying to, either get a promotion or develop in my career, it was very difficult to seek mentors who had the same lived experience as me. And so therefore, I think, and going back to Sam's point, and I'm a Nigerian woman, and I always remember the conversations I had with my dad about having to work 3 times harder just to get the same, or even just below what other colleagues may receive. And so I felt that even though I'm now in a very similar place to my peers, well, in the same place, as I've grown, it's taken me longer and I've had to work harder. That constant need to have to put yourself out there so that people can see you is not replicated at the same level as others.
Absolutely.
Can I make a quick point, Jo? I think the other fundamental, which I definitely recognize, is my peers moved along their career just by them showing potential. But as a Black woman, you need to prove you can do it. Your potential isn't enough, which then resonates with what Anna was saying about working harder.
Yeah.
And I think, to be fair, a lot of people don't see it that way, but we are actually double minority, right? So when an opportunity comes up, the first thing is, we're fighting against, if it's a female, if they're looking for a female, then we are at the very bottom list, because then it's going to be a white woman followed by an Asian woman. Well, by the time you filter through the first 2 groups, there's actually nothing left for the Black woman. And then I guess if you then say, well, actually, we're going to target the Black community, then we are fighting against, it has to be the man first before it's the woman, right? So we are constantly facing multiple battles. It's like a never-ending thing for us. And I guess the question for both of you, given where you guys are, and from what I know and what I understand, you're quite involved and quite high up there within your organization. What would you say has helped you to achieve the visibility you do have currently? Because as you can imagine, there are a lot of people that are actually still struggling with, I don't know what to do. I feel stagnant. I feel like I've been in the same position for so long. I appreciate that you both have, years of experience, and it clearly wasn't easy. But if you were to do it again, I guess is the question, based on what you know, what would you be telling somebody else to do to position themselves well?
Yeah, so I just want to address something that you talked about around the overlapping discriminations that one person may face, right? And that's what they call intersectionality. So in the intersection between being a woman and being a Black woman, and being a Black woman from LGBT community, or a Black woman from a Black woman who's a parent who's also disabled, right? Actually, what that does is that overlaps the discrimination and then just takes you further and further away. And it's really important for organizations to understand that in order for them to get equality, they need to do more. They can't do what they do for women, for Black women, because that's not enough. They actually need to do more. It needs to move into that positive action space. If I was telling my younger self anything, I would probably tell her to be fierce, be intentional, and just believe in herself. And I think that just speaks to sometimes feeling like I had to downplay myself, downplay my awesomeness, right? Because of the environment, because I don't want to be seen as overconfident or too ambitious. So yeah, I would just say, bypass the noise and just be who I am.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Sam, I've got a very direct question for you, and I'd like to believe Hannah's done the same thing. Would you say that your involvement with lots of, I suppose I'll call it, side of the desk activities has perhaps helped you forging your career into the direction it is currently at?
Oh, 100%, because that reference to my younger self, where my younger self would have said, work hard, people will notice, and you'll get on. I would beat that straight out of her. Work hard, don't get me wrong, but don't be relying on anybody noticing. Instead, put your head up above the parapet. I know it'll be really hard, don't get me wrong, but be brave, be authentic. Because I know the advancements in my career has not been because of my day job. It has been because I have actively sought to engage in the kind of diversity and inclusion space with the additional activities I do in that space, because it gives you more connections. Remember, I mentioned network earlier, and your network is fundamental. And, again, to that young girl, create a massive network in the organization you're working in, and do not be shy in asking for stuff. I was very shy, which is probably why it took too long to move along. But that €18, don't be shy. If there's something you want and you need, you got to ask. Nobody's going to read your mind, and just know that that's where you want to go. So yes, and also get involved in other activities that shows the breadth of your intent. Not everybody that works for you is having the same experience on an equal footing.
Hallelujah.
You have a responsibility.
That's
to
right.
Every single one of us, not just to the majority. Make it an environment where I can walk in and be myself and talk authentically about my life without having to hide behind this facade of I am mega professional and I don't discuss anything beyond what professional conversations we're having. I want to bring my true self to work. I want to work really hard for you, but goodness sake, make it a bit easier than you've done in the past.
I like that. And I think whilst you both were talking, I like how, Anna, you went into what the organization can do and what you can do. And I think yourself, Samantha, you've done the same thing. Now, what is coming to mind is we are mothers. As mothers, what are we doing to ensure that we're raising queens, we're raising kings as well, to be able to position themselves right? How would you encourage a mother or someone who's just watching and not really sure how to navigate these things?
So I think, like I said, I'm from a Nigerian background. My parents would have wanted me to go to college or university, but I think it's important to understand, or for me, it was important to understand what I wanted to do. And I knew that I wanted to go into work. I knew that I wanted to work in banking, even at quite a young age. I had worked for one bank before at 16, so I knew that that's my path. But I suppose my advice is that in today's day and age, experience counts for a lot, and there is no one right path. I always see them memes that said, if you buy a house at 40, it's still an achievement. If you have your first child at 35, that is still an achievement. Absolutely. So if you buy a house by yourself, that's still an achievement. So what I'm trying to say is that every path is different. And so it's about, as a parent, going along the journey with your child, and I can talk for myself. My son at the moment, he's really into graphics and logos design. And so he's built a website and we've published it, and he's 12. And, you know, he really wants to do that. And so my job as a parent is to support and guide and advise, rather than say, oh no, you're too young to have a website. Sorry, you know, that's for your 25-year-old self. I manage it, I'm supportive, but give them room, because especially millennials, Gen Z, and whatever letter is coming after that, they're different. And so we as parents and as older parents, we have to be able to adapt.
All I would say to mums and dads out there, raise your children with consciousness. Let them know what the real world is about. Education is one thing. Reality of experience, which Anna was making a point on, is something else. Your academic achievements are wonderful. I will never downplay that. If a child wants to be academic, let him be. But what actually makes you stand out is the roundness of the kind of other things you're getting involved in. Parents, give your children exposure to, and this is out there, so look out for it. Clubs that does things on coding, clubs that does things for, particularly for Black girls, on coding, clubs that does things for digital art or music or even banking or entrepreneurship. You know, look out for that and get them involved in that really early, especially if they show an interest in that space. And be real with them. Not in the sense our parents were real with us, because I'm also of a Nigerian mum. We used to say you have to work twice as hard. I've never ever said that to my daughter. She has to work twice as hard, because instead what I'm saying to her is, you will have challenges, because we're still living in a society where your Blackness is not as easily for them to ascertain, but you should never hide your bushel to try and fit the environment. You stand tall and grab onto your Blackness, but instead go and show them the difference your Blackness brings to the table. Walk in, I'm educated, I have this experience, and yes, I am Black, but that's really good, because it tells you need diversity in your organization, and I should be that person that makes it happen for you.
I've got a question for you guys, and this is around, I guess, people paving way. So let's talk about people paving way, or perhaps, someone sort of giving you an opportunity that suddenly becomes what allows the world to see you. And I'm talking about sponsors, I'm talking about allies, I'm talking about people that mention your name in places that perhaps your feet would never get to. Would you say that in addition to, I guess, the other things and the side of the desk activities that you guys do, you do have people in places that are trumping your name and making sure that you get the opportunity you deserve?
Absolutely. If I reflect on my career, there's two examples that I can give. One is a message to Black senior women. We need you, right? We need you to send the ladder down. We need you to champion for change. Because I remember my first relatively big promotion was from my manager, who was a Black woman. And we had a great relationship, and it was one of them authentic relationships that I could be my true whole self, and it actually made a difference in my organization. And so I would say she was a direct sponsor, and I always say to my clients, you need a sponsor and you need a mentor. They are two different things. They serve different purposes. A mentor is someone who guides you and supports you in your career. A sponsor is somebody, just like you said, Joe, who talks about you when you're not in the room, who also is kind of giving you that next opportunity when it comes about. And they're only going to be able to do that if you are very intentional and open about what it is you want to receive. But the person sitting in front of me saw potential. And this role has opened my world, right? It's changed my life, changed my world. And that was because somebody saw past the experience and the technical and looked at potential, and has really, opened into a different world for me. So
thank you so much, Hannah, for sharing that. Sam, what are your experiences around?
Yeah, very much so. I would say for every career move that I've had, I have been in a position where I have had a sponsor who has advocated for me. I've had, and I currently also have a sponsor at the moment who's advocating for me. And one of the things that Anna said is, yes, absolutely, to the Black, women already in those senior positions, help your sisters up. They just they need that additional and be somebody that talks openly about the talent of Black women without feeling that it's something you shouldn't do because you're in a professional environment. Because the reality is our white counterparts do that very easily, and nobody challenges them on the fact that they are advocating for another white woman. I think, just as Anna said, mentoring is super, super important, and they do different things. I've always had a mentor, but also actually I will advocate for you to be to go and find a mentee who also needs your expertise and who needs your support for that journey. We would take each other all along on this journey if we are open to all of that, and we could make a difference for every single one of us if every Black woman does that. But the other bit that's really important, and it links back to that network I was talking about, is a lot of what you may find in your career moving forward is that network becomes fundamentally important to you, because it's within that network you find a mentor sometimes, or sometimes within that network that actually you find that you have sponsors that you didn't even know you had. And these are people who would advocate for you regardless, even though you haven't officially got a relationship with them. So always remember that. That's also really key.
Thank you so much. I kind of feel like that's a loaded information there. So I was reading an article the other day, and this is the FTSE board report, and I'll read out what it says. So it says FTSE 350 looks on to track to reach the target of 33% of women on the boards by December 2020. A lack of representation at the top could be impacting the number of women in the executive pipeline, right? So can we presume that for Black women, the climb up the ladder is even much more difficult?
I read that same article. That's why I'm smiling, because I had so many thoughts. But it goes back to the point I made about intersectionality, right? It's the layers. So I read that article, and it was great to see that we've achieved 30% at FTSE 350. But when you look back, I think it's something like 4% are from ethnic minorities. And so people are like, well, what's happened? At some point, did we not look around and think, are we embracing all women? And I also heard a talk recently where a woman was describing her experience, saying that it's interesting that she doesn't feel like she's being seen as a woman. She feels like she's being seen as she's Black. And that really triggered me, because actually that's the issue, right? So when we say gender equality, when we say we need to do a lot around gender, are we including all women, or are we just including white women? And the results would say that we've only looked at it from one lens, and so now we've got work to do.
Would you say that your organization is working towards ensuring these disparities become null?
Yeah, I can definitely comfortably say my organization is doing a number of things to really change the dial on here. So we've always been one of the first to make a really public goal to achieve 40% in female target at senior roles. And that's going absolutely fine. But yeah, absolutely. I would also agree that the disparity between a Black or Asian or ethnic minority colleagues or women in that space is smaller. So one of the things that I definitely do as being part of a women's network in my organization is really refocusing on that, because we've been working a lot on getting women into those leadership positions, but actually we need to put a different lens of looking at it from the perspective of the Black, Asian and ethnic minority colleagues. But for me, the really, really, really difficult bit is the cultural shift that's needed within the organization. So the organization can make a public intent and say they want to do this, but the hardest journey that my organization is experiencing at the moment is how do you create the culture internally so every colleague buys into making that a reality, and nobody's thinking this is just a flash in the pan. They'll get over it in a minute.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Absolutely. I think for me, I've always said there's a difference between intent and execution. we can intend to do a lot of things, right? But it's about how do we execute. And so I'm constantly asking, constantly beating the drum of, is this going to make, you know, our boat go faster? And if you and the analogy is only do what's going to make things move, right? So if this is not going to actually make it move, then let's stop doing that and let's do something else.
Wow, thank you so much, guys. I think if you were to finally wrap up to say one thing to organizations out there, and I suppose with regards to ensuring that a Black woman's, career diary can be amazing, can be just as amazing as her counterpart, what will that one thing be? And secondly, I guess, would be just to reaffirm some of the things that you guys have said. What will be that one thing that you would also be saying to that Black woman who is thinking, I have been doing the same and I just can't see a breakthrough? What is that one empowering word that you would say to her?
So to me, both advice is to be intentional. As an organization, be intentional about what you're trying to do. If you can see that your executive board and your senior positions are not balanced and they don't show equality, then be intentional about your actions. And to Black women, be intentional, know what you want to do and go for it. Like, Sam mentioned about being shy. There's no time for that, right? We need to be, and there's ways of doing it. So if you're an introvert, that does not mean that you can't progress in your career. Mm-hmm. So mine would be intentional. Also get a sponsor and a mentor, and also prepare yourself. Sorry, that was 3, but I have 3 that I always say. Prepare yourself. A job could come tomorrow. Are you ready for it? Be intentional. Let people know what they want, what you want, and get a sponsor and a mentor.
Awesome. Thank you, Hannah. Over to you, Sam.
It's a difficult thing because I have more than one thing to say, but I would say for an organization, similar to Anna about being intentional, but I suppose for me is make your actions make a difference. Don't do actions to just show others that you are supportive. Therefore, when people look at what you've done, they can see the cultural shift you've made and they can see the impact on the individuals that in your organization. And if I don't think of Black women, I suppose my advice would be absolutely be clear in your mind what it is you're trying to achieve, but have the really clarity to also articulate that to everybody around you and take action. And those actions are similar to what Anna said. Find a mentor, find a sponsor, and make it happen.
Well, thank you so much, Hannah and Sam, for joining me on today's episode. Whew, fully loaded. I think I need to go back and really listen to this myself, and I'm sure there's a lot more than a few points. I've been noting points down here. I'm sure there's more than a few points that the viewers have been able to pick from today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. Right, guys, so that's it for us on today's episode. I hope you guys did enjoy the conversation and been able to learn a thing or two. I'll wrap up just echoing what Hannah said. Be intentional, whether or not you're an individual or an organization, and also to dial into some of the things and some of the words of Samantha Owo is for you as an organization to ensure that you can make your choices and make a difference. If you've enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to continue to visit us on our website, www.joemaxwellshow.com. And if you do have any questions, or if you do have any topics that you'd like me to address, kindly email us at info@joemaxwellshow.com. And that's it for now. See you again, same time next week. If you have found any of our interviews or our videos interesting and engaging, click the subscribe button and also turn on your notification just to make sure you never miss a thing. And don't forget to like, comment, and also share the videos with your friends and families and get them to get involved in the conversation as well.